Welcome to the Literacy Council of Frederick County Tutor Training Pre-Workshop course. If you are listening to this video, you have already attended the volunteer information session and have been accepted as a volunteer. Congratulations! The pre-workshop training course is divided into two modules. Part 1 is Introduction to Basic Literacy and ESL Instruction, and Part 2 is Working with Adult Learners. The modules introduce concepts that tutors will use to teach their students. However, volunteer tutors with previous experience in teaching reading or working with adults will likely already be familiar with many of the concepts presented in this pre-workshop. You will also be asked to complete a simple activity at the end of this course that will be referenced in the full workshop, so it is important that you work through all the slides. Thank you. The topic overview summarizes the major concepts covered in Part 1 of the pre-workshop. Many of these concepts will be discussed again in the full workshop, so don't worry if you still have questions about some of the topics. Take a few minutes to become familiar with the topic list.
This module contains 33 slides and several video clips to view and should take between 1 and 1.5 hours to complete. Research has shown that for many people, attention increases with movement. So feel free to stop, stretch, and take a short break. It will enhance your learning.
This pre-workshop module covers tutoring with both basic literacy and ESL students. While many of the strategies are the same for both groups, students may have different needs depending upon their backgrounds, such as education level or learning experiences. This module is divided into 3 sections. What elements make up a spoken language? These are the components of language. What are the components of reading English? What are some instructional approaches for teaching, speaking, and reading English? The module begins with instruction for basic literacy learners, while the second part looks primarily at ESL tutors and students. When you have finished this course, you will have completed the learning objectives listed on this screen. Reading these objectives will give you a mental map of the road ahead.
There are 4 components to language: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. People think of literacy primarily in terms of reading and writing, but effective literacy instruction involves all 4 components. Listening and speaking are oral language skills, and reading and writing are print or text skills. However, these skills are related. For example, everyone has an oral vocabulary. Within that oral vocabulary, the number of words people understand when they hear them is usually larger than the number of words they use to express themselves when speaking or writing. Similarly, the number of words that people recognize and understand when they read them is typically larger than the number of words they use to express themselves in speaking or writing. The same strategies that students use to expand their oral vocabularies can be used by tutors to help students expand their print vocabularies. Listening and reading are 2 different ways that people receive information. These are called receptive language skills. Speaking and writing are 2 ways that people use to transmit their ideas. These are expressive language skills. You can help students understand that the skills and strategies they use to decode what someone is saying can be transferred to help them understand text. For example, the strategy of asking someone to slow down or say something again can be adapted to ask students to read more slowly or to reread something they didn't understand. Research shows that there are 4 basic skill sets that good readers use. Alphabetics is a term used to describe reading skills needed to decode words effectively. The body of words used in a particular language is its vocabulary. Fluency is the ability to read words quickly, accurately, and with expression. Lastly, comprehension is the ability to interact with and bring meaning to text. Both basic literacy and ESL students may need help with one or more of these components. Depending on the student, a tutor may emphasize one component more than others, but good reading instruction will work to develop all four. In the next series of slides, you'll learn more about each component and why it's important. Alphabetics consists of three main elements. Phonemic awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate sounds of the language. Word analysis skills includes phonics, word families, and word parts. Phonics is connecting a sound to a symbol, usually shown as a letter. Word families are words with letter or sound patterns, like cat, hat, sat, fat, and mat. Word parts, like syllables, prefixes, and suffixes, help students decode words. Finally, strategic decoding is the ability to combine one or more of these skills to decode a word. Not all students need to start their lessons with alphabetics. However, most students reading below the third grade level need instructions that focus on phonics and word analysis skills. Once alphabetic skills have been developed, tutors can emphasize the other language components: vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. Weak alphabetics or decoding skills might show up in various ways. A tutor might find students reading at a fourth or fifth grade level start to plateau or level off in their learning. Or adult students may show gaps in their learning. Some students may be able to read above a third grade level because they know a lot and can use context clues to decode words. However, these same students may struggle when reading something unfamiliar, or they may recognize words in one context but not another. Often this is because they have gaps in their alphabetic skills and need some instruction to strengthen primary skills.
Research shows that when teaching vocabulary, you can group words into three levels or tiers. Native English speakers generally already know Tier 1 words, although they may not be able to sight read them. Higher level Tier 2 words, found in more sophisticated texts, are not likely to be part of a student's oral or written vocabulary. Tutors may decide to focus on integrating these words into the student's everyday vocabulary. An expanded vocabulary is important because it allows students to read higher level texts with confidence. It also helps them express themselves better when writing and speaking. Students may need to know the meanings of some specialized Tier 3 words, but they do not need to make these words part of their everyday vocabulary. Tier 3 words should only be taught if there is an express need. For example, if a student needs to fill out an application for housing and does not know the meaning of lessee causal factors resulting in termination, a tutor may decide to teach the meanings of lessee and causal. A third component of reading is fluency. Fluency means the speed and ease by which we read. Fluency has three components: speed, accuracy, and expressiveness. When people read fluently, reading is more enjoyable. When reading is more enjoyable, people are more likely to do it. Reading more helps develop a broader vocabulary as well as fluency, decoding, and comprehension skills.
This slide lists some of the skills and strategies that tutors use with their students. A skill is an acquired ability to perform well. A strategy is a plan that teaches a student how to master a skill. Today, however, the terms are often used interchangeably. What is important to remember is that good readers use a broad set of comprehension skills and strategies to help them understand what they are reading. Comprehension skills help students understand how information is organized so that it can be used more effectively. Examples of comprehension skills include identifying main idea in detail, recognizing cause and effect, fact and opinion, sequencing, and comparing and contrasting. Comprehension strategies include using prior knowledge about a subject, setting a purpose for learning, looking at headings, diagrams, and other structural parts of an article, and making predictions. You will learn more about teaching comprehension skills and strategies in the full tutor workshop. All four of the components of reading instruction are related. In the diagram on the left, alphabetics and fluency, shown in orange, support print-based elements of reading. They help students read printed words accurately and rapidly. Vocabulary and comprehension, displayed in blue, support meaning-based elements of reading. They help students understand what they read. In the diagram on the right, alphabetics and vocabulary, shown in green, are skills students apply to decode individual words and understand their meaning. Finally, fluency and comprehension, in gold, are skills that students apply to the larger text. Each of these components will be discussed in more detail in the full tutor training workshop.
There are many instructional strategies for teaching literacy. Explicit or direct instruction is very effective for both basic literacy and ESL students. This strategy is also known as scaffolding or the I do, we do, you do method. The tutor explains what the student should do, models the behavior, guides the student in the attempt, and asks the student to apply what has been learned to new material. Navigate to the video link provided on the screen for an example of what this instructional strategy looks like in action.
So today we'll continue working on fluency with a new pattern that's called pencil tracking. Are you ready to start?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember what fluency is?
I think so. Is it to talk smoothly, like when we have a conversation?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Fluency is reading smoothly without hesitation, and it makes remembering and understanding what you read easier. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. I've written a sentence on a piece of paper. We're going to practice reading it fluently, and all of the words in the sentence are words you know, so don't panic, all right? Only the combinations of the words or phrases are different. Now, for this activity, I placed dots between words and phrases to help you read the words fluently. You're going to swing your pencil from dot to dot, all right? And then reading each word or phrase as you do it. Now, as you practice, we'll remove some of the dots until you're reading the entire sentence at once, fluently, all right? Let me show you first. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. Did you see and hear what I did there?
I'm not sure. Can you do it again?
Yep, I'll do it again. Watch and listen. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
Okay, now I think I get it.
Okay? Why don't you give it a try?
Okay. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
Not bad, not bad. Remember, swing from one dot to the next.
Can I do that again?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
Great work. All right, now let's work on the next sentence. Notice that I've taken some of the dots away. All right, so the combination of words is going to be bigger. It'll sound different as we read it. I'll start again. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. Okay, now you try.
Okay. Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. I don't think I did that right. I didn't sound the same.
Okay, I'll tell you what. You're doing it great. Let's read it together. Ready? Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. Great. And once more.
Scott went
to the store to buy a new pair of shoes. You're doing really well. You want to try it on your own?
Sure.
Okay.
Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
That's great. That's great. You want to try the next sentence?
Yeah, I think I got it now.
All right.
Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
That was sensational. Great.
Should I try the next one?
Yeah. Go for it.
Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
That's excellent. You are reading that so smoothly. Now, let's try the last sentence without any dots.
Scott went to the store to buy a new pair of shoes.
You ever wondered what
There are many instructional strategies for teaching literacy. LEA, or Language Experience Approach, uses the student's own thoughts and words to create relevancy. It is effective at all levels and results in a product that the student can save for a portfolio. You will learn more about the LEA later in this module and also in future professional development opportunities. Watch the video at right for an example of the language experience approach in action.
So, the last time we talked, you were looking forward to going to the zoo over the weekend.
Yeah, we like to go there. My girl really likes the zoo.
Well, I'd love to hear more about it. What kind of stuff did you do?
We looked at a lot of the big animals, the tigers, the lions, the elephants, and there were baby tigers too playing with each other. That was fun. My girl really likes the zoo. She's real smart. One day she wants to be a veterinary. I want to get good at reading and writing so I can help her learn and she could be proud of her mama. We also had ice cream.
Okay. Well, it sounds like fun. And what a great reason for you to want to get better at reading and writing. You know, I'd like for you to tell me about the visit again, and this time I'd like to write it down to create a story that we can use to work on your reading and writing. You want to give it a try?
Sure, okay.
Okay. Tell me the story again. It doesn't have to be exactly the same if you want to change anything. I'll write it down exactly as you tell me.
On Saturday, we went to the zoo. I want to get good at reading and writing so I can help her learn and she could be proud of her mama.
That's a great story. And becoming a veterinarian is a terrific goal for your daughter. I'd like to read your story back to you. Here's what you said. Now, watch and listen carefully as I read it to you. Ready? Okay. On Saturday, we went to the zoo. We saw the lions and tigers, and some baby tigers playing with each other. My girl, she really likes the zoo. She's real smart. Someday she wants to be a veterinary, an animal doctor. I want to get good at reading and writing so I can help her learn and she can be proud of her mama.
That's what I said, but how did you say that word? Veterinary?
Veterinarian.
Yeah, that's it. I want to say that word right.
Okay, well, let's underline that word and we'll put it on a word card so you can continue to work on it. Now, before we do, let's read your story together. On Saturday, we went to the zoo. We saw the lions and tigers and some baby tigers playing with each other. My girl, she really likes the zoo. She is real smart. I want to get good at reading and writing so I can help her learn and she can be proud of her mama. Great. Now, are there any other words you'd like to underline and add to word cards?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got doctor and proud. Why don't you write these 3 words on these cards? Now, we'll continue to work on these words and any other words that come up. I'll keep one set of cards for myself. You take the other ones home with you to practice on. Would you like to read the word story again?
Sure.
Okay.
On Saturday, we went to the zoo and saw all the big animals, the lions, the tigers, and the elephants.
If you've got a pack of hot dogs in the kitchen, toss them in the trash. And do this instead.
See, breakfast literally means break fast. It's the first food activating the digestive system after the overnight hours when nothing.
Asking a student to work on a real-life project or to collaborate with other language learners, if possible, can enhance language learning. Because project-based learning addresses real-world needs, students can immediately apply what they are learning. In addition, it often gives students an opportunity to develop other abilities, such as computer, planning, or leadership and collaboration skills. There are many other basic literacy tutoring strategies and materials that you will learn about during the full tutor training workshop. The following slides, however, will now focus on tutoring methods and approaches especially useful for ESL, or English as a Second Language students. Take a few minutes now to recall some of the information you have just learned or reviewed from the previous slides. If you have specific questions based on this material, you may wish to make a note and ask about it when you participate in the full tutor training workshop. Remember that ESL stands for English as a Second Language. You might also see ESOL, which stands for English for Speakers of Other Languages, or ELL, which means English Language Learners. The important thing to remember is that ESL students are not native English speakers, and that they may or may not be literate in their own language. The ESL section covers 4 main topics: the components of language, the communicative approach to language instruction, additional instructional approaches, and language and culture.
Read the learning objectives of this section about ESL learners and navigate to the video link on the screen. As you view the video, think about the obstacles and frustrations that the language learners experience in their attempt to communicate with native English speakers.
This season is too big for just red and green. It's the holidays, and we're bringing all of the color. Oh, you can do it like this. This is lit. What's up, snow people? All of the color, all of the gifts. Happy holidays from Old Navy.
Telemarketer, they'd come, she'd say, hey, come talk to them, and I would stand on the phone. I'd find out that they're trying to convince me, like a 7 to 8 year old, trying to sell me insurance, and I don't know how to respond to that.
Every afternoon, my mom would walk my brother and I down to the park in our community. This little girl started kicking sand in my direction. My mom, without touching her, she puts her hand over her legs and she just says, stop. She ran off. There were 4 or 5 big women pushing each other out of the way, grabbing each other by the shoulder, saying, let me get a piece of her, let me get a piece of her. My mom just sort of stood there like, why are you talking to me? I don't know what's going on. I sit in front of her, 8-year-old me, and I just did this with my hands to protect my mom. There were all these horrific things that were being said to my mom, and I had to translate all of that. I lost it. Now I was crying, and I, standing behind her, holding onto her shirt. Soon enough, boom, punch straight to the face.
Because her priorities were always work, work, work in order to survive, she had no time and energy to dedicate to learning English.
When it comes to shame, I feel like not only do they feel it, but I get the first wave of that shame. Having to hear things like, well, why don't your parents speak English? While your dad or your mom are here in the background saying things like, oh, that lady, she didn't treat us very well. She spoke like she was very mean.
Since I was a young child trying to help translate for my parents, people always had this idea that I didn't have the capabilities of understanding what the conversation was about.
And I know that when I was, younger, I'd get so frustrated asking my parents, Mom, can you help me write a sentence? I'm sorry, Mika, I don't know how to do that. Go ask your dad. Okay, Dad, can you help me write a sentence? I'm sorry, Mika, I don't know how to do that.
She came home from work and she was like acting very frustrated and I was like, Mom, like what's up? And she was like, sir, you don't understand. And I was like, what do you mean, Mom? And she's like, I'm stupid. And she said, I'm slow. I'm uneducated. And that's how I knew my biggest regret in my entire life is that I didn't teach my mom more English when I was a kid.
My dad was a veteran in the Vietnam War. My parents had to flee the country. So every time I have to translate for them, I think about why do I even have to do that? And it's because they sacrificed so much to be here for me.
Now that I'm older, I feel like they don't even need to learn English. Knowing more than I should know about my parents as a younger kid makes me feel much more capable to take care of them when they're older.
I just want to tell my parents how much I'm grateful for them, regardless of sometimes this forced responsibility of having to be there and translating for them. It's the least I can do to repay them for all their sacrifices.
Mommy, con thương má nhiều lắm. It means I love you, Mom, very much.
Read the learning objectives of this section. You've already seen this diagram in the Basic Literacy Learner section. ESL students usually have different areas they need to develop. ESL students may have good listening skills because they work in an English-speaking environment, but they may lack confidence to speak much English. Or, ESL students may be better at reading and writing than they are at listening and speaking due to a different focus of study or a cultural priority of their native country. In ESL instruction, we usually start with oral language skills and then progress to reading and writing. Most ESL instruction at a lower level focuses on helping students navigate a new community, and most of that navigation is done through oral language. In general, people have larger listening than speaking vocabularies. To feel comfortable speaking, students must practice using more words from their listening vocabularies to express their ideas out loud, so tutors develop activities that allow them to do that. Similarly, the number of words that people recognize and understand when they read is typically larger than the number they use to express themselves in writing. As with speech, tutors employ writing activities that encourage students to use more reading vocabulary.
As with basic literacy learners, listening and reading are two ways ESL students receive information. These are receptive language activities. Speaking and writing are two ways people express their ideas. These are expressive language activities. When students understand that listening and reading are both receptive forms of language, they can learn to adapt listening skills to a reading task and vice versa. For instance, reading slowly or rereading a text for understanding can be adapted to a listening environment by asking someone to speak more slowly or repeat what they just said. Although we talk about these as 4 separate components, in real life we use them together. For example, imagine a learner who needs to send money to a family member in her home country. She goes to a local bank or post office and needs to explain what she wants to do to the person working at the counter. She listens to instructions, and then she needs to read the form and write the correct information. Without any one of these skills, the transaction will most likely fail. This is why good ESL instruction will eventually integrate all 4 language components. The tutor doesn't need to know the student's native language. In fact, it may be too tempting to translate a word into the speaker's language rather than letting the student determine meanings on their own. As a tutor, you will use signs and language to communicate information. The student learns vocabulary and structure of English from that communication. Context, existing knowledge, and experience are important in learning language. Students draw on their own knowledge of language structure and function, common gestures, and their native terminology for things to figure out the meaning of words and phrases. Finally, when appropriate, tutors should use all 4 components, speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills, as much as possible to reinforce the lesson content. The communicative approach, or CA, has 6 elements. First, communication is the means by which people learn language. Second, communication is for a real purpose. To facilitate real or authentic communication, we construct a dialogue that is based on a real-life situation. Dialogues and role plays are often used in the communicative approach. Third, focus on using language rather than teaching grammar rules. Language has different functions: greeting someone, asking for information, providing information, thanking, warning, apologizing, etc. Understanding language functions helps students understand when and how to use what they are learning. Fourth, the benefit of having lots of learner interaction is that students have a chance to ask questions, insert their own language, and create a more realistic practice. This interaction leads to authentic use of language by triggering questions that students want answered. Fifth, trial and error are part of the process. Errors are expected. The emphasis is always first on being understood, then on being accurate. When students are understood, their needs can begin to be met. Finally, one of the tutor's most important roles is to create a safe place for students to practice and make mistakes so that they can communicate better and feel confident when they leave the classroom. Tutors facilitate this by setting up activities, modeling the dialogue, encouraging students' use of language, and providing support when needed. Another effective ESL instructional approach is the discovery method, sometimes known as problem-based learning or problem-posing learning, experiential learning, or guided discovery. In this method, learning occurs through experience. Students experience something, make observations or inferences about that experience, and then continue to investigate and test this new knowledge in other contexts. Like the communicative approach, tutors act as facilitators in discovery learning. They use questions and suggestions to guide students and help them create new knowledge and learning experiences. Students are responsible for discovering facts and relationships that lead to new knowledge. They base their understanding on their own needs and prior experiences. Students construct their own understanding because it is connected to and based on personal prior knowledge. Now, watch the video and note how the tutor uses the discovery method described above.
Make any equation no problem with Chegg. Finish your semester.
Today, we're going to read a story about a woman named Isabella. You're going to work with a friend, so let's all get with a partner. Kashari and Maria, you work together and I'll work with Bogdan. So, here's a story about Isabella. I want one of you to read the first sentence and the other one to read the next. Kashari, can you read the first sentence?
My name is Isabella.
And Maria, read the second.
I was born on August 8th in San Pedro Sula, Honduras.
Good. Now keep reading and switch as you go along. If you have questions, please raise your hand.
So you do,
I don't tell everyone.
My name is Isabella.
But I'll tell you. I was born in 1980.
Wonderful reading. Now we're going to learn about prepositions of time. That's how we talk about time in English. I want you to reread the story and underline all the words that relate to time, parts of the day, dates, months, seasons, and year. Let's do the first sentence. My name is Isabella. Is there any words that have to do with time?
No.
Okay. So the next sentence. I was born on August 8th in San Pedro Sula, Honduras. Are there any words related to time in that sentence?
August 8th.
That's right, August 8th. What kind of time word is it?
Month. Date.
This is a little confusing, but the month and the day together make a date. So let's underline August 8th. August 8th. Now, let's finish reading the story and underlining the others. You three can work together. Okay, let's find out what you underlined. What was the next thing after August 8th that you underlined?
1982.
Great! Next.
Morning and evening.
Okay, good. 2 words in 1 sentence. What kind of words are morning and evening?
Parts of the day.
That's right. Morning and evening. Very good. Now let's Very good. Now let's find out about prepositions of time. The first word underlined in this story was August 8th. It is a date. What word comes before August 8th?
On.
That's right. Let's circle the word on. What's the next word we underlined?
1982. It's a year.
Correct. What word comes before it?
In.
Right. Let's circle that word in. What's next? Okay, let's look at our charts and the middle of our worksheet. The first line is for time. Let's look at our chart. What word did we use before time?
At.
Great. Write at on the first line. So here. Yep. Nice. Okay. The next part is part of day. Let's look at our chart. What word do we use before parts of day? In the. That's it. Write that on the second line. Use the chart to finish the rest of your worksheet. Okay. Kishari, what words do we use before day?
On.
That's right. Maria, what words do we use before dates?
On.
Very good. Bogdan, what words do we use before months?
In.
That's right. Kashari, what words do we use before seasons?
In.
That's right. And last one, Maria, what do we use before years?
In.
Very good. So we found 3 words to use time: in, on, and at. Now we're going to use these 3 words to write about our partners. Let's write these words here in the blank after it says use words. Use the words. Write in, on, and at. Now I want you to ask your partner the question and write their answer in the sentence. The sentence will have a time word, so use the correct one. In, on, or at. I'll do the first one. My partner is Bogdan. Bogdan, when were you born?
November 21st, 1992.
So, November 21st, 1992. So, if I should write a complete sentence, I would write Bogdan was born. Should I use in, on, or at?
On.
Right. Bogdan was born on November 21st, 1992. Now, finish the activity with your partner. Bogdan, I'll work with you.
At MedStar Health, we believe that health.
Another effective ESL instruction.
Think about what scaffolding means. You build a layer of supports and then you put a foundation of boards on it. This allows you to reach higher places by standing on the foundation boards to work. You then build additional supports that raise the foundation, going even higher. Scaffolded learning works the same way. You build a layer of language supports. Once you have the supports, you explore the language, applying it to new contexts, the foundation of boards that allow you to work. To scaffold instruction, break instruction down into small, manageable pieces. Draw on what the student already knows to move into new information or learning, making connections whenever you can. An example of a scaffolded dictation activity is to start off by giving the student the sentences written with blanks, so that the student is only writing the key vocabulary words. Later, when the student's knowledge has grown, you ask the students to write the whole dictated sentence. We discussed project-based learning with basic literacy students earlier in this module. This technique also works well with ESL students. The main idea behind this strategy is to identify and solve an authentic problem, or a problem with a real-world connection. For example, students might create a map of community resources or a guide to aid new immigrants who want to use the library or other local agencies. As students work to complete the project by conducting research, they create opportunities for instruction in conversation, vocabulary, language functions and structures, reading and writing. You may remember from the first section that the Language Experience Approach, LEA, is a method used to teach English using the student's own spoken stories. It is valuable because it can be used in a variety of instructional settings, and it can be used with basic literacy and ESL students at all levels. Briefly, the student or students tells a story about a topic. For lower level students, the tutor acts as a scribe. Telling the story gives students oral language practice. The completed story serves as a rich environment for further learning of vocabulary, language structures, fluency, and pronunciations. LEA is especially helpful in creating material that interests students with lower level reading skills. Such materials can be difficult to find, and because the story is student generated, the skills are practiced in context. Also important, this method reflects some of the principles of adult learning. For example, the work is relevant because it's a story about the student's experience in their own words. The text is their story, so they have incentive to say, spell, and read the words correctly. And when tutors write the stories exactly as told, they are showing respect for the students.
It is important for tutors to understand the role of culture for 2 reasons. First, understanding the student's culture will make you a better tutor. It will help you create a safe and supportive learning environment and relative learning opportunities. Secondly, understanding the role of culture will help you to become a better cultural guide. But what is culture? Culture is a complex combination of rules and values and norms and behaviors. Some culture is easily visible. This can be called surface culture. Other cultural rules and norms are unspoken or tacitly understood. This is called deep culture. And some parts of the culture are so private that individuals are not even consciously aware themselves. This is culture at the deepest level. We will look at each of these levels. Differences in surface culture are easily noted. Examples include foods, dress, dance, and language. There is relatively low emotional commitment to surface culture factors. People are generally proud of surface culture, but understand that other people are also proud of their own cultures. Deep culture may be described as those practices that are tacit or unspoken. They are usually not apparent to the senses. For example, a person's concept of time may be only understood when a host is surprised when a guest appears for dinner at the dot of 8, even though the invitation stated that time. From the host's cultural viewpoint, a polite guest would understand that they should not have arrived before 8:30 or 9. When interacting with people from another culture, we often tend to minimize the differences. We're really all the same, we think. We want all the same things. One of the problems with this is that people may express the same values, but for very different reasons. It is important to understand the motivations behind the values and not just the values themselves. It is helpful to remember that ESL students live with the difficult task of combining and integrating their culture with the U.S. culture all the time. The deepest level of culture involves unconscious rules and generally carries emotionally intense associations. Examples include how children should be raised, family roles, religious beliefs, and work ethics. Your primary role as tutor is not to help students adapt to U.S. culture. It is to help them understand U.S. culture well enough to make decisions about what aspects to adopt or combine with their existing cultural values, and to understand how these decisions affected their learning, workplace, family, and community goals. Keep in mind that language learning is mostly a straightforward process. A student has little or no freedom to make up words outside of a very specific context. On the other hand, cultural learning is a constant process of selecting and combining elements of the student's native culture with elements of U.S. culture. Feel free to discuss any cultural questions that you are asked, but remember that in some cultures, a teacher's opinion is very heavily weighted. Encourage students to articulate their beliefs or concerns rather than unintentionally imposing your own values. As with the first review section, you may use this review slide to gauge how many topics you can recall on ESL instruction. Then proceed to the final activity. This Part 1 final activity is designed to let you apply some of the ideas that you have learned in this module. There is no right or wrong answer. Part 2 of the pre-workshop is titled Working with Adult Learners and is ready for your viewing. Thank you again for volunteering your time and efforts to give the benefits of literacy to your fellow community members.